introduce myself, my name is Abby. I am the social media specialist at a company called Tilt. We do lead management for HR. I guess, why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself? What's your story? How'd you get to where you are now?
Yeah. So again, nice to meet you. My name is Olivia. So I've been in the HR space for about 13 years now. I graduated in 2010s from college. So like just coming out of the recession. My original career goals, I wanted to actually be a sports broadcaster. I love
Wow.
football. I love sports. So that was the original dream. But
Yeah.
because because the major was so impacted, I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on something more general. Moved into communications and then kind of fell into HR after college. I got invited to work a temp job at a technology company for a couple of weeks, and that evolved into recruiting, coordinating, and then eventually HR. So
Yeah.
I just kind of fell into it, but ended up really loving it. So that's kind of what got me into HR. I mainly have been in the startup tech environment.
Yeah.
Throughout my career, I started at a public company and then, quickly moved into the startup environment. And I really enjoyed it. I am a person who, I'm competitive. I love a challenge.
Yeah.
I really liked that, being in the startup space, you can wear multiple hats, be more of a generalist, and really get in on the ground floor of, helping to build out the teams and kind of dipping your toes into everything. So that's what I really enjoyed about it. Um, Previous to Turo, I was at a marketing SaaS software startup. I was there for about 3.5 years. I managed a global team. It was really interesting to become more familiar with like European privacy laws, compliance, and all of that.
Yeah.
And then in January 2021, I started here at Turo. So when I joined, we were at 230 employees, and now about 2.5 years later, we're at almost 1,000. So
Wow.
it's been really, really, really great opportunity for growth. Seeing not only our internal team grow, but Turo overall grow. Being there to implement a lot of the policies, a lot of the procedures that we have, really established for this growing population has been interesting. And
Yeah.
just like the relationship building and getting to know people and see people's journeys as well has been really fun. So it's been a really fun ride so far.
Yeah, that is an insane amount of growth
Yeah.
in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit more about that, like, and how I want to dive into Turo, as a company and what you do as well. But how has it been to keep up with, that amount of growth and like managing people? You see every person that comes into that company, have a hand on them when you're in people operations. How's that been?
Yeah, no, great question. So I think for us, it's been about maintaining our core values. Our core values, we're a company where we don't like to just display our core values on the wall and just remind people of what our values are. We definitely encourage, our employees and especially us as leaders, especially on the HR side, to really embody these cultures these values on a daily basis. So through the recruitment process, through the new hire onboarding process, through performance management, even all the way through offboarding. So we really do try to work and embody those values. And, it really lends to our culture because, us rallying around these core values, it's been really helpful for us as we grow because,
Mhm.
for example, grounded is one of them. Being willing to roll up your sleeves and get the job done. Leading with kindness, leading with empathy, and that's something that comes directly down from our CEO and our executive leadership team. So the fact that it comes down from them and they really encourage us to lead with that kindness and that empathy and that grounded value, it's really helpful, especially as we grow, to just remind folks like, hey, like this actually doesn't align with our core values. Like, hey, like we can agree to disagree. It's part of our expressive value, but we, rally around a decision. So definitely the core values have been on the forefront of that growth.
I love that. That's so important. Really cool.
Definitely.
So, a little bit more about tell us about Turo. Tell us, what you guys do. You said you have around 2,000 employees, right?
Um, just under 1,000, so about like 940 right now.
So, a lot of growth has been happening. Are you guys, yeah, like I said, just tell us a little bit more about you. Are you hybrid, remote, in person, all that jazz?
Yeah, great question. So, of course, when COVID hit, we were all at home. We made the decision in 2021 to actually come back to the office, and it was going to be a hybrid model where all teams had their core days in the office.
Mhm.
But with a lot of feedback, we actually evolved that, how we want to work, where we want to work. So we did become more of a flexible environment. We leave it to departments to determine, whether some roles can be fully remote, can we be fully flexible. We definitely want to empower our leaders to determine, where they want their folks to work.
Mhm.
So there are some groups like our customer support, maybe like our claims, especially like HR, our places teams, we require to be in the office a little bit more. So taking a look at those roles, it's like, no, we do want that more of a hybrid model. I'll take myself, for example. Our teams were in the office, our people team were in the office Monday through Wednesdays, and then we have the flexibility to work from home Thursday and Fridays. But of course, if I need to pick my son up on a random day, maybe I can't get a dog sitter, there's always the flexibility to be able to work from home. So it's great to have that flexibility. But then we also have other roles, like our more technical roles, for example, that they are able to be more fully remote. So we have really expanded into the states that we work. So it's a combination of hybrid, remote, and fully flexible.
Yeah, really all three. Is that hard to balance on your half? Like, do you feel like you have problems keeping track of like, how to contact people and things like that? Or do you think it's really just the same old and where they're at doesn't really affect you?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like we definitely have like our roster of where people are. And again, like we definitely encourage the managers to be on top of, the communications, like what does working hours look like? What does online presence look like? So we definitely punt that over to our leaders because we don't just want to be that HR team that's saying like, no, you have to do this, you have to do that. We want to empower them to be able to make those decisions and what makes the most sense for their teams. So that's kind of how we managed it.
Mhm.
Uh, it's a work in progress, and it continues to evolve and progress, especially, maybe we move into new states, maybe we don't. It's in
Yes,
partnership with our operations leaders, our G&A teams, just to make sure that a new country makes sense, for a new state makes sense for the business. So it's definitely a team effort there.
definitely. So tell us what Turo is.
So Turo as a business, so we are a peer-to-peer car share. So we've been compared to like the Airbnb for cars. So
That's a good way to put it.
yeah, so our mission is to put the world's 1.5 billion cars to better use.
Mhm.
So in addition to putting those cars to better use, we're also mindful of, the impact on the environment, and we have some initiatives around cutting carbon emissions as well. So being mindful of, the cars and what we have on our platform, but also being mindful of, the impact that we make to our community and the environment overall.
That's awesome. I don't think I've really heard of anything like that around where I live. I am in Missouri. That's where I'm calling in from. But I don't think we have anything like that out here. So that is a little bit of a new concept for me. So it was super interesting when I was reading a little bit about you guys.
Yeah, I mean, and if you haven't checked out the platform, I definitely encourage you to, because
Yeah.
we're not like a traditional rental car company, because the cars are coming directly from the hosts who
Yeah.
own the vehicles. So we don't just have those like typical sedans, or
Mhm.
you don't know what car you're going to get. You're really able to search for the car that you specifically want for
Yeah.
the next adventure. Like I can give you an example. Like my mom, she wanted to do a fun weekend in Napa. And she was like, I want to be able to book a nice car. So she was able to find like a Mercedes, like 500. I'm not sure the exact model, but she and her partner were able to, take this luxury vehicle and treat themselves to a nice weekend in Napa. And so she was sold after that. She's like, it's really nice to be able to,
Yeah.
get the car that, that we want based on, the activity or what we're doing. So
Yeah.
if you haven't searched around your area, you should, to see what cars are available.
I definitely am gonna do that because for as long as I can remember, I have wanted like my very own Jeep Wrangler, and I want to take the top off and I want to drive around. So maybe I'll just go searching for one of those so I can just have a little taste before hopefully one day I can buy my own.
Yeah, yeah, we've had some folks who've done extended test drives on vehicles too, so it's not a bad idea there.
That's so fun. So at Turo, what are you in charge of specifically in your role?
Yeah, so my role has definitely evolved since I've joined. When I initially joined, the plan was for me to, lead the people operations, function. So total reward, compensation benefits, professional development,
Mhm.
managing the people business partners, and then also managing our ops team. So, more of the administrative onboarding, offboarding, day to day tasks for employees as well. And since we've grown, some of my role has evolved, and we've hired more specialists to take over total rewards, for example. So, since my role has evolved, I now oversee our people operations. So our specialists, our generalists, so more focused on the HRIS side, the onboarding, the offboarding workflows, taking care of mobility, relocation, immigration.
Mhm.
Um, and I also oversee the people business partner function as well. So overseeing those two main functions right now.
Cool. And if you had to describe your people operations strategy, how would you describe that?
Oh, that's really interesting. So the strategy is evolving; it's changing. We do have a growing team, but
Mhm.
mainly, our strategy rallies around, our core values, and
Mhm.
being that. We want to be that go-to for our employees. That, employees are able to come to us and ask any questions, and if we don't know the answer, we at least know the right direction to point them into. While
Yeah.
also teaching them how to fish, by giving them some resources, whether it's in our shared drive, whether it's, implementing a ticketing system where they can easily search and find the help article based on any keywords. So definitely teaching them how to fish in this growing environment, but also being that point contact that they can confidently go to if they have any questions or concerns.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Teaching people, how to help themselves, but being there so they know if they can't figure it out, then you have their back.
Exactly.
What benefit do you think that your employees value the most?
Good question. I know that a big benefit for us, definitely our health insurance offerings. We 5 out of 6 of our plans are 100% covered by Turo for all of the employees,
Mhm.
and we have a very generous premium for dependents. So I know that we've gotten a lot of praise on the healthcare benefits that we offer nationwide, especially, and we definitely mirror those same percentage of premium coverage for our international folks as well. Um, we've started to implement a lot of more like of a well-being bundle, so offering resources like Headspace, Ginger, Gym
Mhm.
Pass. Mental health has been a big topic, especially with what COVID has done to rock us all. So being able to expand on those well-being offerings has also been really important for our employees as well.
That's really great. I feel like that's definitely, like you said, been a little bit of a newer thing
Yeah,
since the pandemic happened. And, I think it's great that there was more of a focus on mental health and all these conversations that weren't being had before,
yeah,
especially in, the business world and, the corporate 9 to 5 or really just any. any working job for that matter. So that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah, and one more benefit that we started to offer a couple of years ago that's had a really warm reception is our learning and development policy,
mm,
giving employees annual funds to use within a calendar year to put towards their own professional development, their career development, and internally we've offered some programs to that they could put funds towards if they'd like to take advantage, but really giving employees the freedom and the flexibility to partner with their manager on what resources make sense for them to use their professional development dollars towards. So we've had a pretty good utilization rate come out since we've implemented that policy.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it really shows them that you care about who they are as a person. And like, even if one day they were to move on from Turo, like, you're still showing them, like, hey, we actually care about who you are, not just the work you're doing and, your job position.
Yeah, definitely.
So, other than, I guess you kind of mentioned it a little bit with this learning and development and things like that, but what role does technology play in your other benefits?
Yeah, well, with the well-being, we actually partner with our broker, and they are, a technology platform. So a lot of our, we've shied away from doing like PDFs or having them go like directly to the carrier websites. They're definitely able to do that, but our
Mhm.
broker has helped us build for each country like a benefits landing page where they can click around and view the different offerings, whether it's medical, dental, vision, EAP resources, those well-being, any tax benefits. So it's kind of a one-stop shop that they're able to access through an Octitile, which is really great. So it's been
Yeah,
a really great resource when it comes to teaching them how to fish.
definitely, definitely. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a people ops professional?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges, is taking a look at our own processes, our own procedures. Like now that we're at almost 1,000 employees, does our current workflows make sense with what we were doing when we had only 300 employees?
Right.
Do we need two or three approvals to move forward with something, or can we take swifter action and avoid that red tape? So um, there have been some challenges, especially as the team has continued to grow on um, putting those standard operating procedures and make sure that people are cross trained now that we have more team members. So
Mhm.
there have been, some growing pains, but because we're, a supportive and collaborative team, just working together to make sure that everyone's in the loop and in the know of, how we do things internally as a team. Part of that goes back to an earlier question that you mentioned around not only getting a vision and mission for our people ops, function,
Mhm.
but getting a vision and mission for, each of our separate, sub departments within HR. What's the mission and vision for total rewards and benefits for total rewards? What's the vision and mission for our people services, for our business partners, and making sure that it all aligns with the team's overall vision. So establishing that, communicating that so that the team is in the know, and making sure that it aligns to the department and overall business objectives as well.
Yeah, and that's no easy feat either, keeping everyone up to date and involved and, feeling like they're in the loop because communication really is everything when it especially when, like you said, you're a little bit of a hybrid company and you have people kind of everywhere. One little miscommunication can really just make something roll out of control when there's no need for it. So,
Definitely.
your people appreciate what you're doing for them in that way.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think that you do specifically kind of to take your employee support to the next level?
Yeah. Great question. You know, Kind of tying back to our core values is managing employees' questions, concerns, anything that they bring to the table with that kindness and that empathy. One
Mhm.
thing that we lead with and we always want to be mindful of is considering the human first. If we're going through, a a tougher case, a tougher situation, do we have to stick to the book? Or can we have some flexibility knowing that there's a human on the other side of the issue and they have, concerns or things that, we want to be mindful of for them. So definitely being mindful of that human component of it and being mindful of the human experience. So that's definitely something that's been a big driving force for our team. And it's something to this day that, when I meet with employees, it's how do I take a step back and think about the human experience first and foremost?
Yeah, definitely. Going off of that, I noticed in your title is people operations. I know there's been a little bit of talk about kind of the shift between the term HR versus the term people operations. Where do you fall on that? What do you think about that topic? Kind of like, where do you land? Do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, no, great question. You know, at first, this went back to my previous company as well, because I was HR there, and there was a big conversation. Do we want to rebrand this to people, just to soften it up a little bit?
Yeah.
And we still get folks who refer to us internally as HR,
Yeah.
but we've been people since I've joined, and I think having it as people just ties more back into that human experience.
Yeah.
Because traditionally when people think HR, they think like, oh, the big bad scary guy, and that's what we want to avoid being. We want to be approachable. We want to have that human experience be at the forefront. So we're definitely leaning into the people title of it.
Yeah, I love that. It's been a discussion for us over here at Tilt when we're creating content and talking about, the HR and people ops world. Um, where we're like, should we totally ditch the term HR? Should we totally move over to people ops? Because we feel the same way. We're like, it's a people first motion. That's how we do things here. We know that's how most people are doing it in, the whole world now in people ops and HR. So we're kind of like in that middle ground where we're like, we don't want people who only go by HR to feel left out because they are still, doing great things in their roles too. But we are kind of on like team people ops. We're like trying to get the train to that
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
Um, so if you had to start all over again, if you had to start back from square one of your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Great question. I would My advice to myself would be driven, but be patient. Because being a competitive and determined person, I was very anxious to continue to level up, level up, level up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so focused on the next step in my career that I didn't really take time to appreciate everything that I was learning when I was learning it. So I would definitely encourage myself to um, maybe pay a little bit more attention when a mentor was, walking you through, benefits or total rewards, or, walking you through their own style of handling employee relations. So, taking a breath, taking a pause, and, enjoying the journey, because, while I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that I have had, it's definitely been a lot to get here, and just enjoying the ride a little bit more.
Yeah. And if I remember you correctly, you said you started out in communication and marketing background.
So my major was communications. My previous company was a marketing SaaS software company. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think that, like, do you think that kind of set you up for success going into HR? Do you think that gave you like any like one up into it at all?
Yeah, I mean, what I really enjoyed about my major is that, communications, you can really apply it into any field that you
I
go
was a
into.
communication major
Yeah,
myself, which
yeah.
is
So,
why I
so
was interested.
yeah, so and a lot of the courses that I did are definitely relevant to the field. I recall taking a conflict resolution class, and I've
Mhm.
definitely dipped into my notes to go through how to mediate a conversation. There's I took an interesting course on communication and aging, and it's definitely relevant to a workplace because
Yeah.
as we work, we're all getting older. So it's been I'm really grateful that my major has really empowered me to be mindful of the way that I communicate, whether it's verbally or non-verbally,
Mhm.
and implementing that into the way I work as well.
Cool. That's so interesting. I love when people tell me they were a comm major
Yeah.
and like we all end up in such different places.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Um, if you had to recommend one book, if you're not a reader, maybe a podcast or something else, what is one book or podcast you think that every people ops professional should read or listen to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Radical Candor. I really enjoyed reading that. I've been
Mhm.
fortunate enough to see her also present a couple different times, and I just really enjoy the way she appreciates feedback and that loop, and um, really the way that I interpret it as well is just it really empowered me as a female, especially in the workplace, to be able to use my voice and
Mhm.
how to implement it into those conversations. So that's one that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, I love that. And last question, Olivia, tell us one thing that you think is changing or on the rise in the people ops world.
Yeah, we spoke about it earlier. I think that mental health is, going to continue to be a big topic of conversation. Mental health, maybe as it relates to burnout, setting those expectations, especially in this, changing environment that we're seeing ourselves in, especially in the tech world. So, being mindful of, well-being, again, seeing the human and understanding, the workload and what we're asking of people, and just making sure it aligns with expectations, and giving people that space to be able to take time, prioritize their mental health, and be mindful of that.
Definitely. I totally agree. Is there anything else you would like to add before we come to an end?
um no, I think we covered a lot. These were really great questions, and really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I am so excited for everyone to hear your story and everything you've had to share today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.